Hello everyone, this is Edge from Edge Plays. Thanks again for all the wonderful comments you had in terms of questions you may have had on the previous video. What I'm going to do today is just go through a little bit of the starting locations that you might start in when you start playing the game, and hopefully answer some questions that you might have, just like, you know, what is the difference between the three locations, how to pick a class, that sort of thing. Again, any questions you might have, let me know and I'll try and answer in the next video. But yeah, let's get started. So the location that we're currently in at the moment is Thanalan, or UL'DAH, the main starting town. And depending upon which class you pick at the beginning of the game when you make the character, this could be your chosen location. Now there are three locations at the beginning of this game, UL'DAH being one of them. The second one is GRIDANIA, which is more of a forest location, which I'll show later in the video. And the other one is LIMSA, which is kind of like a coastal sort of pirate sort of fisherman sort of city with a full navy and whatnot. Now for the sake of this video, because I want to keep it as kind of not too long, I'm not going to try and talk too much about the story in terms of the antagonists, what the initial problems could be, or what you'll see in the starting towns, because you get a brief overview of that when you first make a character and you first get introduced to the location. But each one has different classes and different sort of enemies that you're going to meet and experience. Now don't worry if you decide, oh, but what if I want to go to GRIDANIA afterwards, or what if I want to go to LIMSA afterwards. You do get the option to travel there via airship or part of the story. So don't feel like you're going to miss out on anything. So if, for example, you want to start as a Lancer, which is like a sort of a spear class, you still can. You just have to wait until you can access that location a little bit later on. Now in each of your starting towns or cities at this point, hub worlds, you have a lot of facilities that you get use of, and it can be a little bit daunting as to where you're meant to go. So in your home hub you have access to different class guilds. So for example, let's say you start off as a Lancer, you can learn how the Lancer works in your home hub and get story missions that allow you to get better at that particular class. You've also got access to what's called a market board, so if you wanted to buy anything from other players, which is fantastic, you can do. But also a lot of the additional content that you might be aware of is hidden here. As you might be noticing as I'm running past, you might see little exclamation marks or little Moogle symbols above people's heads. These have all got points of interest that you can get into, and I am going to mention a little bit more about this later on in the video when we get towards the GRIDANIA portion of it. So don't worry if I'm I'm not going to answer those particular questions. So a good tip when you're exploring these home hubs, one of the first things that you should always do is, you might notice that I'm running past sometimes little sort of gem crystals in the video that I can use to teleport around. Now because the home city hubs are so massive, it can get a little bit kind of disorientating on where you're meant to be going. So when you start making your class and you're running around sort of learning the story, learning a bit about the lore, knowing where you're meant to be going next, if ever you see these little teleportation stones, attune to them, because it means you can hop around in the cities really quick and easy. It doesn't cost anything to transport around, but it's always good for a little bit of shortcuts instead of having to save yourself running back and forth. The big stones you saw earlier, that's one of the big home hub stones you can attune to as well. It makes things a lot easier for teleporting around. Now to answer Ensa and Dante's question earlier about costing money to teleport, it does cost to teleport when you're running around outside in the wide world if you're going back to your home hub. However, when you're inside the cities, teleporting around internally costs you nothing. I will go into a bit more depth how that works, but you don't need to worry about this right now, and it's because when you first start playing, you're going to be sticking around the home hub a little bit quite nicely, which is nice. Now we're now in GRIDANIA, which is the sort of the home hub for things like your archers, your lancers and so forth. And as you can see here, we've got these little icons I'm going to explain about a little bit more now. So for Ensa and Dante's other question about I don't want to miss anything, the blue exclamation mark, you can see the little plus on my left, those will normally unlock things that allow you to get extra features like dungeons and so forth, or things like glamours or dyes. The ones in front of me here, which are like your green sort of background with exclamation marks, they're your side quests. Now you do not need to do them, But if you're needing a little bit of extra EXP, or maybe you want the cool reward from it, like the tabard there, or the little bit of monetary sort of reward, then nothing wrong with doing them at all. There's so many of them, you probably won't do them. You'll find that as you're doing the main story quests, you don't need to worry too much about EXP, because it normally gives you enough to level up. But there are plenty of ways to get stuff on there. Another way of earning EXP is the lev mets, and these give you experience based on, say, doing battlecrafts. So whether you want to kill a certain thing, they start around level 1 up to level 10 and keep on going up in increments of 5 levels. You've got your field craft, so if you build, say for example, a crafter, again I'm going to go in that one in a later video, you can level that up by doing these field crafts. And you've got trade crafts, so if you make a crafter, so as I've been gathering before, you can level that up by using these as well. Again, I don't want to try and go on too much of a tangent, I will go on them in a future video. You've also got the innkeeper, so if you need to rest in a inn room and just relax and just chill out, you can do. And you've got your arms mender as well. So gear does take damage over time, but you can repair that gear for a small amount of gil as you level up. You find that probably in the beginning you'll be changing gear so often that you won't need to worry about it too much. But if you're sticking with gear for quite a while, you might need to keep checking it every once in a while. Now as I'm running up here, you see that big giant stone in front of me? That is like a home hub crystal. And as you can see, when I'm teleporting, I have access to the Lancers Guild, Conjurers, Leatherworkers. Each home hub, as I've mentioned earlier, has certain classes that are uniquely defined for that location. So if, for example, you want to be a rogue, you'll end up at LOMINSA. If you want to be a Lancer, you end up at GRIDANIA. But like I said before, you do get access to these locations quite early on in the story. So if you think, do you know what, I'm not really enjoying Lancer or Rogue, I want to try a different class, as soon as you get access to all 3 hubs, at any point you can literally change class, no problem. Now these little stones I'm showing you here, as I mentioned, these are the Aetherite shards that you want to attune to, because as you're running around exploring these little cities, it makes things so much easier in terms of travelling around and avoiding this sort of kind of backwards and forth a little bit too much. And right here, for those who generally have never had it before, this is the market board. So if, for example, you're wanting a new weapon or a piece of armour, or maybe just looking for potentially a nice little new pet or sort of a item for your clothing, in here no problem. As I'm travelling down through GRIDANIA, you'll notice that both GRIDANIA, UL'DAH and LOMINSA have very different looking visuals. I personally love GRIDANIA. I think it's a fantastic little starting location, but it might not be for everybody. If you prefer, for example, say LOMINSA, because I do love the little coastal feel to it, or say you prefer, for example, UL'DAH, there's no reason why you can't go back and explore those areas or do a lot of your trades in there. Choice is your oyster, really, pretty much. You will find that regular events also happen in here. So for example, there was recently a Moogle event. They happen in all 3 locations, and very soon at the beginning of next week there will be a sort of summer sort of moon fair event where you can get sort of like beachwear outfits or special items that you can wear for your character, and that will be revealed, and so I'll reveal that a little bit later on as well. I do apologise for the nighttime view. When I was recording this video, I was trying to get a little bit of daytime, so you can kind of see these visuals a little bit more. Again, as you can see, as I'm going down the lists, you'll see that certain guilds and classes are available there. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of an insight into the starting 3 locations. Now, difficulty wise, I don't want to try and spoil too much for those who have yet to play it, because I feel the experience of watching the beginning cutscene, learning a little bit about those locations is really good to sort of, I don't want to spoil that experience for you. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in a bit more detail about GRIDANIA, for example, starting with that location, and I'm going to go through about how to pick up your job guild and a little bit about how combat works, because I know there's been a couple of questions about, can I dodge attacks, for example, how do I use the combat a little bit, and also how the classes work, like say tanks, DPS, healers, you're hearing these sort of terminologies. So hopefully next video I'll go into a little bit more about that. If I've been unsure, or you've been unsure of anything I'm explaining in this particular video, please leave a comment. I will try and answer that question in the comments as well. But yeah, I haven't forgotten that I did promise to show a little bit of a tour of the gold saucer, so that is a video coming as well. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'm just going to let it play a bit longer now so you can see a little bit more of those Saturn locations. Yeah, enjoy.